So we told you a lot on this show about the potential dangers of big tech. Some of those dangers are imminent and they're technological, and the main one is robotics and artificial intelligence. Remarkably, the political figure who is making the most sense on this subject, who has thought about it most deeply, is a Democrat who is running for president. He's Andrew Yang. He's an entrepreneur, and as we said, he's a Democratic presidential candidate. He says that artificial intelligence and expanded automation could potentially cause violence in this country, and that we need to do something about it right now.
Before we get to Andrew Yang, I want to talk a little bit about robots. We're just going to start here with industrial robots because I think this is what most people think about when they think of robots that are coming to take your job. According to Wikipedia, robot production over the last roughly 20 years has gone from about 70,000 units per year to over 380,000 units. Definitely going up. One of the market segments that Andrew will talk about in a minute is food service and food prep. I just wanted to pause for a minute and just show you what some of those robots might look like. Agriculture is another area seeing a lot of interest from robots. Some of that is either picking fruits and vegetables, taking care of the weeds. You'll see tractors that now don't have a cab anymore. I will admit I didn't see this one coming. Robotic bartenders, who would have thought that that would be one of the next big things? But MGM Resorts, they're doing it. As soon as August of 2019, replacing bartenders with robots. Robotic assistants in retail, I have my doubts on how well that's going to go over. This next one, though, Amazon and their cashierless stores, that I think we're going to see a lot more of. Amazon is a whole nother level of robotic orchestration. What you see in orange are the actual robots themselves, and then above them in yellow or blue is the rack that has all of the goods on them, so to speak. The things that people purchase are in those racks, and the robots move around, orchestrated by artificial intelligence, and that decides what you've ordered. The robots go and get the pallet that's needed, bring it to the operator, who then ultimately packs it out and sends it to you. The other fun thing that Amazon had brought up a number of years ago was drone delivery. And I know that isn't a thing yet in the United States, but around the world that's definitely been happening for some time, especially in some remote areas. Self-driving cars. Seems like everybody's working on this one, trying to get it perfected. The leader, in my opinion, is Tesla by far. And one of the reasons I say that is because they already have all of the equipment on the Teslas that are on the road already. So that equipment is there, it's taking data in real world situations, and that's going to improve their algorithms way beyond anyone else's, again, in my opinion. And then we have the cousin of the self-driving car, the self-driving truck. Now, the interesting thing lately, there had been a number of protests about the little box that records the drivers and what they do and restricts the number of hours they can be on the road. And again, there's been a number of protests about that one. I don't know what's going to happen when we start having self-driving trucks on the road. Now, we wouldn't want to leave out the medical field and specifically surgeries. Now, some of those are being driven by a physician. But increasingly, I'm sure that's getting more and more automated as well. And then the other area is AI, as I've heard this more and more about how well it's doing in reading CT scans and other things, and competing with professionals in that space. The last couple I have here, and then we'll get back to Andrew Yang's interview. In skilled trades, we've got a couple items here. One is laying bricks, and robots have been able to do that for some time now. But the other one there is installing drywall, and that one looks a little more human-like.
Andrew Yang joins us tonight. Andrew, thanks very much for coming on. And I meant that with sincerity. I haven't heard anybody in our political conversation describe the threat as clearly and compellingly as you have. Why should we be worried about automation?
Well, if you look at the backdrop, we automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Missouri, and those communities have never recovered. Where if you look at the numbers, half of the workers left the workforce and never worked again, and then half of that group filed for disability. Now, what happened to the manufacturing workers is now going to happen to the truck drivers, retail workers, call centers, fast food workers, and on through the economy as we evolve and technology marginalizes the labor of more and more Americans.
What will be the effects of that to you? I mean, that's a massive displacement of people. What will happen once that happens?
Well, as you said, I think it's going to be disastrous. Where if you look at truck drivers alone, being a trucker is the most common job in 29 states. There are 3.5 million truck drivers in this country. And my friends in Silicon Valley are working on trucks that can drive themselves because that's where the money is, where we can save tens, even hundreds of billions of dollars by trying to automate that job. But I was just with truck drivers in Iowa last week, and imagining that community recovering from their income going from, let's call it $50,000 a year to much, much less than that catastrophically, it's going to be a disaster for many, many American communities.
You're one of the only people I've ever met who's honest about the effects of deindustrialization. I remember in Washington, the idea was they'll all become computer programmers, and so everything is fine, but that didn't happen. My question is, do we have to sit passively back and let this happen to the country?
Well, that's why I'm running for president, Tucker, is I think it would be insane to just sit back and watch this automation wave overtake our communities and our economy. So we're not ostriches. We can get our heads up out of the sand and say, look, we get it. Artificial intelligence is real. Self-driving cars and trucks are being tested on the highways right now.
I think it's important to take a few moments here and just talk a little bit about what artificial intelligence is. Basically, historically, when you would program a computer to do something, you would actually give it all the commands to do that particular function. Artificial intelligence is more feeding it a bunch of data and then feeding it the answers that you're looking for and having it figure out how to program itself basically to come up with that answer. So the classic example is images of cats. So you would feed an artificial intelligence program a whole bunch of images of cats and images that aren't cats, and it would figure out what is and what isn't a cat. And then you would feed it another smaller data subset to essentially test it. And then you'd see how well the algorithm performed. Now, artificial intelligence is being used on all kinds of different things. Some of the examples you see here are voice. So increasingly, it's getting better at having dialogue with humans, where we can barely tell the difference whether we're talking to another person or not. Now, another area that AI has become very, very good at is creating images. And part of that, there's a website, thispersondoesnotexist.com. And I'm going to show you a number of pictures here of individuals that don't exist. And you can see, and you won't have a whole lot of time because I'll scroll through them fairly quickly here, but some of the areas to look for are in the eyes, in the teeth, sometimes in the background a little bit. There's some things that are not quite right, or there might be a few glitches here or there. So some of them are very, very believable. Others you can kind of tell. So anyway, take a look. Obviously, with both these technologies, you start getting into videos, and the big element there is deepfake videos. There was a recent one with Mark Zuckerberg, another one with Arnold Schwarzenegger, a voiceover, and so on. And then also some of that is creating some violence around the world as some of those things are shared and people get upset because they think they're seeing one thing and it's not real. Hopefully all the information I've shared here has helped you kind of see a little bit more of Yang's perspective on things and why technology is changing our world very quickly in many ways. And we are just not having the discussion around those issues. So anyway, we'll go back to his interview and then I'll show you a few other things on the other end.
And we need to evolve. We need to actually start pushing the way we think of economic progress to include how our families are doing, how our children are doing, and things that would actually matter to the American people. Because GDP is going to lead us off a cliff. You know, robot trucks, great for GDP, terrible for many, many American communities. So we need to get with the program and figure out how to actually make this economy work for people.
I sit with my jaw open. I agree with you so strongly. Let me ask you finally, why isn't this a central question in the campaign of everybody running for president on any side And why instead are they talking about issues that really are kind of frivolous? Why aren't they talking about this?
You know, it's a good question, Tucker. I mean, one of the reasons I'm running for president is to push this into the center of the mainstream agenda, where every candidate should be talking about what we're going to do about the fact that we're automating away the most common jobs in the economy right now. As we're sitting here together, the labor force participation rate in the United States is 63.2%, the same level as Ecuador and Costa Rica. And if anyone thinks that's where America ought to be, I mean, that number is even going to be further challenged when all this technology comes online. So we have to make America embrace this challenge of the 21st century and then try and address it together as a people.
Last question. Shouldn't people who cite unemployment statistics be penalized for saying something so stupid?
Yeah, we have a series of bad numbers, and I referred to GDP as one. Certainly, the headline unemployment rate is completely misleading.
Yes.
And one of my mandates as president is I'm going to update the numbers so they actually make sense to the American people.
Yes.
Because,
so we can know what's going on. Otherwise, we can't make wise decisions.
Yeah, right now, again, and you know this, our life expectancy has declined for the last 3 years, first time in 100 years because of a surge in suicides and drug overdoses. How can you say an economy is healthy when our people are dying? It makes no sense
I literally couldn't. I don't even know what you think on the other issues, and I just support what you said so much. I appreciate your coming on. Thank
you, Tucker. It's great to be here.
Thank you.
I'm going to wrap up just with a couple fun things here at the end. First thing, if you go to robots.ieee.org, the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, they've got a number of things here on different robots. So new robots, robots with interactives, then some bio-inspired machines, lifelike androids, robots you can hug, different robots for your home, some robots for the classroom, factory workers, some things from Boston Dynamics, robots that can dance, and robot helpers. So if you want to do more research, they've got all kinds of good information there to learn more about robots and where they're headed. So with that, have a wonderful day.